I'm Evan Perez in Washington, and this is CNN.